Please welcome Mr. Owen Seymour.
Members of Parliament, members of the Executive of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it would not, of course, be proper for me to address the Chamber unless I address issues to my constituent, the Executive Director. Last year when he was here, given the wonderful turnout, from a politician's heart, I invited her to be my campaign manager. And I thought that I had received her response a few days ago when I was told that the Chamber does not support political parties. I have forgiven her, and therefore I want you to know that in order to prepare this speech, while in the midst of a campaign, I've had to stop doing everything else. So today I feel as if I am on a pilgrim progress, that though with much difficulty have I come hither, yet do I not repent me of the trouble that it has taken me. And to say to Ms. Gale and to the Chamber that my presence here establishes that even though you may not support us, that we shall support you always. I address you today at a moment of unprecedented hazard in the modern history of our nation. It is one of the more marvelous achievements of human civilization that small countries charged with the full responsibilities of statehood have been able to constitute and to sustain sound and viable economies. For such countries, coping with economic challenges and crises is their normal and their familiar business. Indeed, such economic and social progress as has been attained by such small nations has usually had to be wrenched from very challenging environments. And so it has been with our Barbados. We have recorded progress, but we have also had to achieve such progress by overcoming crises that have tested our national mettle. However, the present set of economic circumstances facing Barbados and the trajectory along which, without substantial change, our national economy is set to evolve, go way beyond the dimensions of any economic crisis with which the country has had to grapple since independence. Seen in their totality, the recent performance and the course projected for the economy indicate that the country is caught up in a dangerous downward spiral whose adverse dynamics need to be checked, need to be broken, and need to be reversed as a matter of urgency. It is this consideration that gives great relevance to the theme on which you have asked me to provide a perspective, the prospects for private sector-led growth in Barbados. To provide context, I will first spell out the most salient aspects of the economic debacle which is now unfolding in Barbados. First, the economic and social progress of any society has to be based on its ability to produce more goods and services to meet the needs of its people on a sustained basis. The economy has to grow. The Barbados economy has, however, become a shrinking economy. It is a staggering statistic that the value of the country's output at current prices in 2011, nominal GDP 8.6 billion, was lower than GDP at current prices in 2007, 8.96 billion. The same holds true for real GDP, which declined from 1.1 billion in 2007 to 1.07 billion in 2011. And the most recent performance of the main economic sectors, especially tourism, suggests that there will be further declines this year. No comparable experience can be found when the Barbados economy at the end of a 5-year period has been smaller than it was at the start. Secondly, all indications are that the country's economic problems are spreading and assuming dangerous new dimensions rather than showing themselves to be amenable to policy control. Indeed, what started as a recession accompanied by a fiscal problem has now spread to become a problem of corporate viability, resulting in the absence of any forces at the level of enterprises and sectors which can provide the spark to ignite our growth. It has to be deeply troubling that the sectors which should be leading us out of this economic morass, tourism and international business, have become the sectors where the greatest problems are now surfacing. And it has to be equally troubling that within our leading sectors, the largest enterprises are failing. An additional important element of the vortex which is working itself out in Barbados has to do with the fact that the vital economic functions which must be sustained and enhanced to create an environment that can foster growth are precisely the areas where some of the greatest failure is being experienced. In this regard, the country is saving less and investing less. It has been estimated that savings declined by over $1 billion between 2007 and 2011. And investment, capital formation, has fallen by over $600 million over the same period. The evidence also indicates that the Barbados economy is becoming less competitive and now runs the risk of having to carry out its affairs constrained by an overvalued currency. An inflation rate for Barbados, which is 3 times higher than that obtained in the global economy, and which is significantly higher than that of our neighbors in the region, ought to be a wake-up call for policymakers who understand the value of a fixed-rate exchange in Barbados' stability and in our country's progress. Another important wake-up call to policymakers and all those who have a direct and vested interest in growth and development of the Barbados economy concerns the extent and the source of such anemic economic growth as has recently been realized. It used to be the case that a growth rate of about 3% per annum over an extended period was thought to be the growth target that had to be aimed at and achieved. Growth rates in the order of 0.5% following a sharp recession will not get the job done. But that is now the case in Barbados. More to the point, the only sector of the Barbados economy which has expanded significantly in recent times is the government sector, which has registered an expansion of over 10% in its activity. The pursuits of policies to maintain and expand the scope of government's activities, which are carried out through punitive taxation and other draconian pricing policies by state monopolies, can only bear adversely on the private economy and are likely to prove to be counterproductive. Such policies are likely also to be unsustainable. That stage has now been reached in Barbados. The final aspect of the economic crisis to which attention must be directed concerns the scope and the wider economic significance of the fiscal problems which have been at the core of the country's economic challenges. The government has been realizing unsustainable fiscal deficits which have proven difficult to correct by changes in tax rates and by the manipulation of expenditure. Indeed, in fiscal year 2009-2010 alone, government's revenues declined by over $200 million, despite the increase in tax rates. Such developments point to the conclusion that Barbados' fiscal problems are merely a manifestation of a deeper disorder in the real economy. The country's fiscal challenges cannot, therefore, be successfully addressed by fiscal manipulations alone. Coherent new initiatives to deal with the economic disorder that has generated the fiscal imbalances in the first instance have to be part of the national economic response. Yet, we're constantly being asked to measure the success of the country's economic management policies almost entirely by reference to the extent to which the targets of the medium-term fiscal strategy are being achieved, even when this achievement is accomplished purely by creative accounting. There seems not to be the recognition of the fact that a fiscal consolidation program cannot be successful if it is made to be a standalone phenomenon. It can only have real meaning if it is made an integral part of a strategy to generate growth and development intended to simultaneously deal with the fiscal challenges and the structural imbalances in the economy as related aspects of a coherent national response. There is no such coherent national strategy or program to deal with the fiscal crisis and the challenge of generating economic growth as a single undertaking. In consequence, the economy will continue to spiral downwards once this disconnection persists. In a word, what is urgently needed in Barbados is a coherent national strategy to put the country on a path towards robust growth and sustainable development. Any such coherent strategy to generate robust growth and sustainable development must be informed by a clear understanding of the factors and constraints which work against the attainment of growth and development and which must be removed. And on this matter, there can be no half measures. The strategy must also take into account the range of attractive and viable options and opportunities that present themselves as means by which growth and development can be stimulated. It must set out to maximize these opportunities. The extent of the crisis facing the country clearly also warrants the deployment of a number of new exceptional initiatives, which will, for us, constitute new ways of doing things and which must depart from the conventional wisdom as to how Barbados' social and economic affairs ought to be managed. There also has to be the disposition that many of the country's economic problems can be converted into opportunities, and our citizens should be provided with the incentives to contribute more to national growth and development through their personal initiatives. Growth and development are also best promoted through sound policies which have a clear purpose and which carry with them a strong probability of successful incidence. This is especially needed to support the revitalization of the key export sectors where a dangerous drift is now in force. Above all, a successful way forward for the Barbados economy must start from a departure from the conventional wisdom, which, quite frankly, has brought a new and dangerous passivity and powerlessness to the management and the execution of our national economic affairs. It is a conventional wisdom which asserts that Barbados' current economic crisis is the consequence of global recessionary pressures, and once these pressures are lifted, vibrancy will be restored to the national economy and happy days will be here again. It cannot, of course, be denied that the turbulence in the global economy, and especially in the economies of our main trading partners, have been a factor which has generated some of the difficulties which our economy has experienced. It has generated some, but not all, and not even most. It can successfully be shown that a significant part of our economic crisis has been caused by the application at home of inappropriate policies. It is equally pertinent that the global recession coincided with some fundamental change in some of the conditions which bear most directly on the environment within which some of our leading sectors function. These changes had nothing to do with the global recession itself. This has especially been the case in respect of the international business and financial industry of Barbados, where the loss of a former unique tax benefit from Canada has robbed the sector of a factor which used to give it a competitive advantage. Barbados' international business sector, in consequence, needs now to reinvent itself to meet the current challenges and to take advantage of new markets to promote its growth. It is also the case that economic activity globally is now being increasingly shaped by forces such as information technology and developments in the field of communications. Barbados needs radically to accelerate programs to make more effective use of information technology in its growth and development strategies. Our economic problems have been deeper than necessary because the country's response in this sphere has been inadequate. I turn now to an elaboration of the specific actions and programs that, in my judgment, will be required to create conditions for private sector-led growth in Barbados.